we don't have a real scientific basis for what we're doing. And unfortunately, the doctors you go to don't either. We don't like to think about it. There's some things that are sort of unpleasant, so we don't, we tend to avoid thinking about them. But when you really think about it, and having gone through traditional medical training, you get a urinary tract infection, and occasionally they'll do a culture. And then they give you a dose of a medication. But everybody gets the same dose. If you're an adult, you get 500 milligrams 3 times a day. That's the recommended daily allowance according to the manufacturer. But we're all different. And then they say take it 10 days or 7 days. There's no science there. It's just guess. And if you've ever been to a doctor, you know, most of the time you go and they say, well, let's try this. And then come back in a week or a month or whatever the time period is, and then you come back and they usually is, well, how are you doing? They should be able to say, if it's real science, they should be able to say, you're well. I don't need to see you anymore because we treated you according to this. Anyway, that's not the way it is. And even if you go to a naturopath, and the big difference between this approach and traditional medicine is the safety feature. It's just a huge difference. And maybe I'll draw a quick little picture here that illustrates that, and we all kind of tend to remember pictures better than we do words. Okay, now here's let's see. Let's say you've decided here's your health, and here's the amount of any particular stuff. It could be vitamin C, it could be amoxicillin, it could be Prozac or zinc. Doesn't matter. This principle applies to all these things. So if you start taking something, hopefully your health improves. Until you reach an amount that provides optimum benefit. And in this particular case, this is the amount that, and no matter how much more you may take, you aren't going to get healthier. So you can go on, and no matter what you're taking, if you take too much, you will lose your health. I don't care if we're talking about vitamin C or zinc or whatever, or Prozac. If you take more than you should, you're going to get sick. Now, so if we're talking about pharmaceutical things, you will take them and you will get better most of the time. But unfortunately, if you take just a little bit too much, your health goes down. It's so much easier to over. Now I was reading last night that iatrogenic disease, you all know what that is? You should, because it's an epidemic. Do you know what Ebola is? You know what measles is? How many people died from measles?
Nobody.
See, you know all about measles, don't you? Iatrogenic disease is a disease caused by the treatment, or a disease caused by the doctors. That's called iatrogenic. You have to kind of couch these unpleasant ideas in words that we don't understand. How many would you guess? How many people die from iatrogenic disease that you don't know anything about, yet you know about measles? Close to 1 million. Is that an epidemic? Is anybody doing anything about it? No.
Change doctors.
It's an epidemic because it's a very profitable epidemic. And so you don't want to kill the goose that lays the golden egg. Now, the difference here, what I wanted, this whole thing is all about, if you're taking vitamin C, for example, and you take the maximum amount for your particular situation, the right amount of the right stuff at the right time, maybe you're going to take too much. And maybe you don't need 6,000, you only need 2,000. What are the risks? Well, to really cause any damage, you'd probably take 20 or 30,000. See, and that's the big difference, the safety margin. See, for natural substances, the safety margin is really quite large. And anybody with a little bit of common sense will recognize you don't need a whole bottle of a substance every day. But even if you overdose, you're very, very, if you look at the figures from the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, nobody dies from vitamin overdose. Nobody dies from mineral overdose. That's their figures, government figures. So they must be right? Okay. So when we talk about various ways of testing substances to see if you're taking the right stuff in the right amount, it may not fit the criteria for absolute science, hard science like physics or astronomy, but it's much more scientific than what you get in a traditional sense. You know, there's almost 400 different types of mental disorders. I'll bet you didn't know that, did you?
Most of them are made up.
Now, don't be cynical. Do you realize none of those are objective? They're not objective diagnoses. Most things you get diagnosed as having in the medical field are not objective. Sure, if you break your leg, they say, oh yeah, you got a broken arm. Folks say, oh, you got irritable bowel. Oh, that's interesting. Or is it spastic colon? Or is it regional enteritis? Or is it ulcerative colitis? You know, all these things have very much the same symptoms, and unless you get real, real sick and they do endoscopy and biopsy you, it's a subjective clinical diagnosis. And when they do have laboratory data, like a blood test for thyroid, it's usually wrong. So keep those things in mind, and don't be too critical about some of the things we're going to talk about today, because they seem kind of hokey or subjective or whatever you want to call it. They really are not. Well, I should have left that up here. I want you to remember that, because and so maybe you won't take exactly the right amount of a substance. That's okay. It's safe, and you're going to be a little bit healthier unless you're really silly and don't use common sense. Okay. Now, what we're going to talk about today is really what we call energy. Most of what we do in the business is guessing. That's what we have. What are you going to do? Are you going to guess, or are you going to test? See, I want you to learn to test. And if you do, you'll save yourself a ton of money, and you'll be much healthier. But you've got to do it. And you don't have to go to school to do it. You just have to spend a few minutes on a regular basis, and pretty soon you'll gain the confidence you need to feel good about it. And it's easy to do, and you can do it very unobtrusively. You can have a little pendulum. And we'll go through the various ways. Okay. Do we understand what holograms are? Do you understand what stem cells are? Okay, that's okay. Stem cell, well, you know, when we were conceived, your parents donated a certain amount of genetic material and put it together, and so is you. Now, in that single cell is all the information that cell needed to make every different kind of tissue that we now are comprised of. That's understandable, isn't it? Ever thought about where did we come from? One cell? Well, how could we come from one cell? Well, it's what they call a stem cell. Now, as we learn more and more about stem cells, we see stem cells have the genetic information coded into them that if under the right stimulus, it can become a hair follicle, it can become a fingernail, it can become an ovary, it can become a pancreas, all those things from the same cell. It's amazing. It's more than amazing. But now, you know that pretty little design on your plastic cards, your credit card, your debit card? That's considered a hologram, and I have never done this, but if you cut that into as small as pieces you can and shine a laser through it, you'll see the whole picture again. I don't understand it. And I guess there's a lot of things you don't have to understand to use. And the other thing is, I don't know if you've ever seen anybody know, I should have brought it, I don't have it here, a Kirlian photograph? You know what a Kirlian photograph is? Any of you see auras? Boy, what a dull class. Dull bunch of people. No one can see auras.
My wife sees them, but I
Oh,
can't.
you don't get credit for that.
Okay.
Well, okay, this it would be a typical Kirlian photograph. And coming out of that, you'd see little rays like you might see in a complete eclipse. Now would be a Kirlian photograph of a fingertip. What they do, you put a fingertip on a X-ray film and run the right type of current through there, and this is what you get. And if people feel they can read these things, and you see some that have different patterns, instead of all these little rays being the same length, there might be some shorter than the other, some too long. And some people actually feel you can diagnose people. People that see auras say auras change. They see different color auras. And what this is a physical demonstration of, the energy field that we all have around in us. And if this person died with our level of sophistication and sensitivity, that aura will disappear. Now there's still an aura there. Everything has an aura. Everything has an energy field as part of its nature. So this has an energy field, but it's much more subtle than an energy field from any one of us. And so there's these energy fields that fill the universe. Now, you understand that little thing that Einstein developed? E equals mc squared? Okay, would you explain it to us? Okay. Well, real basically, I couldn't do much better. Real basically, it is that there's a spectrum. And on one end we call it energy, and the other end we call it matter. And the faster you get matter moving, the more it becomes like energy. So it's all part of the same reality, you might say. It's just different degrees of, I don't know, sophistication, refinement, or whatever. And so, philosophically, you might say, before anything can exist, there has to be an energy field, a thought. How would you define a thought? You've never thought of that before, have you? We use these things, and where did that idea come from? Well, just a thought I had. Well, where did it come from? What is a thought? Well, and someone defined it, and I like this definition, is a thought is a thing that influences other things. Isn't that interesting? I like that. And there's poetry written about it, how thoughts become things and all these sorts of things. But a thought is how everything originates. You can't have anything in existence that at one time wasn't a thought. And so the schematic sort of is there's some sort of a intelligence that has a thought, and that thought creates an energy field. There was a great, I think it was National Geographic program on some time ago, and it showed a person, they were walking obviously in a third world country because they're pretty primitive dwellings, and they're walking down a dirt road, two people, and one of them went and found someone that lived in that area, 50 yards off or something like that. And he gave the person there, he gave him a piece of paper and a pencil. And he said to that person, draw a picture. And he did. Now the person that was the object of this television show stayed where he was, about 50 yards apart. And shortly after the natives started drawing a picture, this person started drawing a picture. And they were a picture of the same thing. Somehow this person was sensitive enough that he could read the energy field generated from. So if someone walked up to you and said, "Would you draw a picture? What would be the first thing that would happen?" You'd start thinking, wouldn't you? What should I draw a picture of? What can I draw that has some semblance to reality? We might struggle for a while. We might just draw something simple like a tree or a house or something like that. But to do that, you can't physically, your body won't work unless you tell it how to work. There's a book called The Intention Experiment. It's a fascinating book. And in that, these scientists did an experiment. They took, if you raise chickens, you see that they tend to pattern their behavior after whatever is moving around them once they hatch. These chickens were taken from the hen and put in a cage, and they hatched. And in the room, maybe this big, with the cage, was a robot that was programmed to move randomly throughout the room. And within a day or so, the robot only stayed around the cage with the baby chicks in it. Now, what happened there? See, even those chickens have intent. They have thoughts of some nature. They wanted a hen. They wanted a mother, and they overcame the program in the robot. And it wasn't just one time. They did it 2 or 3 times, and the same thing happened. So we know even primitive, we call them primitive, they're much more focused than we are sometimes, have the ability to think at some level. But I think it's just another demonstration of the fact that thoughts are physical, and they do influence other things. Okay. Now, whether we do any one of these intuitive type testing, there's all sorts of names for them. There's certain things, if you understand these principles, it makes a little more sense. The first thing we need to understand, like we've tried to demonstrate to you, everything has an energy field. Once it's been created, it has its own unique energy field. So whether it's a chair, obviously living things have stronger energy fields, but everything has some sort of an aura or essence or whatever you want to call it. Now, once an energy field has been created, it fills the universe. Now that's much more easy to comprehend in this day and age because we're all used to cell phones and wireless and all this sort of. When many of us grew up, you know, the idea that Dick Tracy had a radio that he could see a picture on that he wore on his wrist. Remember that? 2-way wrist radios. It was science fiction. You know, we thought, how in the world did that ever work? But now, if you don't have that, you're considered. But it's easy to see how these words and pictures and all this stuff gets transmitted through space. So anytime something is created, it's got its own unique energy field. Now this is just magnesium chloride, and there's probably at least a dozen different varieties of magnesium chloride, but they'll all have some similarity that'll make it different than potassium chloride. And so this energy signature will be different than any other energy signature. And once it's there, it's gone. You can't ever call it back. Once you've created something, okay. Now, and this, we're getting a little better idea of this because we understand how computers store energy. Once this has been created and is out there, your brain has the ability to access that energy field. Your brain can recognize if you ask it to. But it's no different than your cell phone. If I just held my cell phone here, it wouldn't do me much good, would it? But if I tell it what I want it to do by putting in some electronic signals, it'll contact someone clear on the other side of the world. And you've all had that experience. You talk to someone in Boston or Miami, and it's just about like they're next door. I mean, it's amazing. But your brain has the ability to analyze and sort out and pick from what do you think the number of ideas and energy fields are out there? Trillions. That's probably a small number. But your brain can do that. You remember the old dial radios, where you don't punch in a number. You have to turn. You say you want 104.6, and you have to turn the dial, and then you get a lot of static, and then pretty soon it gets a little bit clearer. And the closer you get to the frequency you want, the clearer it becomes. But if you go too far, it goes off again. That's your brain. You got to tell it what you want. You got to identify to your brain exactly what you want it to do for you, which is no different than your computer. I might want to print something, but if I hit Control T, it won't print, will it? No matter how many times I hit T and how badly I want it to print, it won't do that. Well, your brain's the same way. It does what you ask it to do. Okay. Now, the other thing is, your brain is constantly monitoring what's going on in your body. You blink your eye. Why do you blink your eye? Because something up here senses your eyeballs dry and it needs some moisture. And so you blink. And it does that to preserve your vision. If you talk to people that they develop these conditions where they can't blink their eyes, they go blind. Unless you put artificial tears in. Now, if I sat right here for 3 days, I'd probably get a bed sore. See? But what's going to happen? Oh, in a few minutes, I'll probably subconsciously shift my weight. Why? Well, because my brain senses, because it got a signal from my ischial tuberosity that there's not enough blood flowing there. And so subconsciously I shift my weight and release the pressure, more blood goes there. I avoid a bed sore. You're constant, your blood sugar goes up, your hormone levels change, you blink your eye, you get hungry. All these things happen on automatic pilot, thank goodness. Wouldn't it be awful if we had constantly had to think about all the... Okay, so your brain's keeping track of that. It has potential to analyze any energy field you ask it to. And the third or fourth or whatever is that when you say something that's true, universally true, you don't even have to be aware that it's true. When you say something that is true, you maintain strength. When you say something that's false, you go weak. And sometimes it's a subtle change, but it's a change nonetheless. And these principles are what were used to develop the technique called applied kinesiology. Now, John Diamond, a doctor 30, 40, maybe even longer ago, took some principles that were developed by Dr. Goodhart, a chiropractor, and developed this whole idea, but this isn't a very appealing book, is it? Behavioral kinesiology. Well, the same book's now sells many more, but because it's called Your Body Doesn't Lie. And now everybody can kind of relate to this, but behavioral kinesiology. But they found that these principles really do work. Now, this is a book called Power versus Force. It's written by David Hawkins, PhD, MD, and he has some really interesting credentials. Mother Teresa endorsed his book, and Lee Iacocca endorsed his book. But what really gives him credibility in my mind is that he co-authored a book called Orthomolecular Psychiatry, and the co-author was Linus Pauling. So it seems to me that anybody that Linus Pauling worked with would probably be rather pretty intelligent. But in this book, this is a book you want to start with. Your Body Doesn't Lie, because it's a kind of a fun book to read. This one's a little heavier, but it's a fascinating book. But in here, Dr. Hawkins says, on page 29, kinesiology, or muscle testing, is now a well-established science. Now, in that sense, it means it's reproducible. You can do this, set up the same conditions and get the same results no matter where you do it. But Dr. Hawkins saying that's pretty impressive to me. You'll have to get your own opinion. He went on, a little further on in his book, he said this: the individual human mind is like a computer terminal connected to a giant database. This is on page 34. What is that database? It's the universe. It's really everything that's in the universe. What do they call the cloud net, cloud internet, cloud ethernet, or whatever they call it? He goes on to say, the database is human consciousness itself, of which our own cognizance is merely an individual expression, but with its roots in the common consciousness of all mankind. I mean, you have to read that a couple times, but the book it's a fascinating book. And he developed his own little ways of doing this. And so, with those points in mind, everything has an energy field. Once they're created, they never go away. Your mind has the ability to access those energy fields. Your mind also knows what your specific needs are and what it shouldn't be having. And the idea that truth makes us stronger, things that are not true make us weak. And Dr. Diamond is fascinating, because he goes into, in his book, he goes into all the different things that influence us. Now, most of you probably seen this picture. Now, when someone looks at that picture, they go weak. Looking at that picture weakens most people. Now, when you look at the picture, you think, well, I know why. Look at the expression on their faces. But that's wrong. It isn't the expression on their... Dr. Diamond is a fascinating guy to hear and listen to. It's the shape of the pitchfork. So what he did, he took the pitchfork and changed the arrangement of the tongues. And then people stayed strong. I mean, that's the sort of thing. It just really makes it fascinating. But then there's all sorts of... He goes into... Some of you may be old enough to recognize that pinup. We're pretty old. And you think, people look at that picture and test weak. Well, Dr. Diamond found that if you cover her mouth, you test strong. Isn't that fascinating? And he has music, all sorts of things. It's like that. You remember the book that's come out recently? It's called The Secret Life of Water, where this guy by the name of Japanese photographer Emoto took pictures of individual water molecules frozen. Anyway, he found all these different things influence water. It's a fascinating book, but this is sort of what he did. He took colors and he took music and different composers and found out that there's very definitely a pattern. Certain composers play a piece of music and you test weak. A different composer or different conductor directs that piece of music and you stay strong. It's fascinating. But this is the kind of book, it'll kind of pique your curiosity, you'll develop an interest. It's a great place to start, and if you decide to pursue it, and you really should pursue it, then you might want to read Dr. Hawkins' book. They're both very good. Okay, so how do we apply this to real life? Well, there's a few principles you need to. And the first one, the first part of the second page, I think that quote is so good. See, we're always, I've got an 11-year-old we're raising, and she's always saying why. It drives me crazy. Why do I have to do that? Why should I? Anyway, don't worry about it. You don't do that when you start your car or turn on your computer. You don't say, why does this work? You just use it. And that's what we should. But I think this quote is so reasonable. We're always trying to find out why. With good reason. We're trying to figure out why things happen. But, you know, in medicine today, we're really struggling with that. We've forgotten that a correlation doesn't mean a cause and effect. You know, you all have a measles virus in you. You all have the flu virus. You all have strep in your throat. You got yeast in your gut. You probably got some MRSA on your skin. But you aren't sick. Why? Because just there's something there doesn't mean it's going to cause an illness. So keep that in mind. That's why I think this saying is so important for us to realize. What we've got to do is say, you must admit that at the present state of knowledge, no conclusion appears to be totally satisfactory. We can't tell you exactly why dowsing or muscle testing or inclination works. We've got these theories and they seem reasonable. And what are the consequences? Someone else wrote not many years ago, but he wrote something that really I felt quite profound. He says, always consider the consequences of being wrong. Okay? So I do muscle testing or dowsing or something, and I'm wrong. But I'm not talking about chemotherapy. I'm not going to muscle test or dowse about chemotherapy. I'm talking about my vitamin C. I'm talking about how much magnesium, those things. So if I'm wrong, I might take a little too much. I might be somewhere out here, a little more than I need, but it's safe. But what if I don't use it? I'm much more likely. The consequences of being wrong and not using it are much greater. So keep in mind that we must have the wisdom to avoid coming to conclusions, and this is what I think is great. The scientific attitude should be one of benevolent curiosity. We should all have that mindset, benevolent curiosity. If you lose that, I think you're in trouble. You get dogmatic, and then that's a real mess. Okay, and then the other couple of principles, that things we do become easier, and okay, so there are a couple things that, especially when you get started, you need to keep in mind. And number one, it works best if you're not stressed out, your mind's not cluttered. Once you get comfortable doing this, those things aren't as important. But when you first, don't try and prove something to someone that's real, just a naysayer. Don't bother. There's a lot of people out there that are willing. Have you ever had a close personal friend or family member that is doing something you just know is not good for them, and they don't want to listen? What do you do? You just say, well, you got to accept that fact, and you can love them, but you don't try and convert them. It's really, really hard. The hardest people to get to switch over to this way of thinking are professional people that are educated. You know, and when I was in practice, I much prefer to hire someone that wasn't a nurse, because nurses are so set in their way. They're worse, maybe not worse than doctors, but anyway. Okay, so don't try and prove things to people. Just do your thing and work with people that are interested. Okay, now there's several methods, several things. Where's my pen? Oh, there. Have you all experienced muscle testing? Okay, so you know what we're talking about. What was your sense the first time you experienced it? He's pushing harder. It's fake. Okay, so muscle testing is one way of doing it. Number two, another way is to dowse. Now, it takes a little more practice and a little more effort. And so you read a little bit about what it's all about, and then you take the time to train your mind to move the pendulum. Every once I envy, I'm a little bit covetous of the skill of some people that play musical instruments. They sit down and play and talk to you. And you wonder, have you ever seen the YouTube videos about these autistic savants that hear a piece of music and then they can play it? We had a lady that worked for us once. There was a transcribed dictation, and she would listen to the dictation, be typing and talking to you at the same time. It's just, but you can develop that sense if you put the effort into it, and everybody can develop this. It isn't some special skill. And the way I found that it worked best for me, I would write yes on a piece of paper and then hold my pendulum as still as I could and tell my brain to go clockwise with yes. And after it got, so I was pretty good at that, I could have it go the other way. Then you turn the cards upside down and see if you could tell which one was yes and which was no by the movement of the pendulum. And at first you weren't very good at it. But now I feel pretty comfortable, and I can usually get a message within just a few seconds. So if I said, in my mind, I say what I tell my brain what I want to know. And I personally, you'll get your own, how do you make a stew? You all have your own recipe. Pretty soon you'll develop your own little method. But for me, I make a statement. I don't ask a question. I say, this is good for me. And I hold it there, and you see, this has worked pretty fast. See, this is going clockwise. The magnesium is good for almost everybody. Yeah. See, now, the beauty of it is, if I said, I need this much every day, and it goes the other way. Now, sure, I could make it do that, but what's the point? I'm not here, I'm not trying to sell you a pendulum. It just works. And so not only can you find out if something's good for you, you can find out how much you need. Now, where else can you get that information? You cannot. There's no other way to get this information. And I believe it's a gift from God, because I believe that we're just not down here just to be knocked around. There are certain gifts that if we want to take advantage of them. We don't have to. I think life's a lot harder if you don't take advantage of these things. Now, a lot of people I've had, when we first started doing these classes maybe 20 years ago, would start talking about pendulums and nothing. Some people would leave. They thought, this is too much like a Ouija board. Well, in a sense it is, because we're accessing similar energy fields. But what do you think the main difference is?
We're relying on our bodies, not on some other force to get the answer.
Okay, that's a difference, that's right. No one else has an opinion. Okay, I'll tell you what my opinion is. The difference is, what are you trying to learn? When we're doing this, I'm not trying to learn, who your boyfriend is or how much money you're making. I'm trying to learn it's my business. I have a responsibility to learn how I can be healthier, don't you think? So you don't get into other people's business. Now, Ouija boards is a little bit there. They're trying to get information they really, most of the time, have no business knowing. And so it's just like money. What messes people up? Money and power, things like that. But you wouldn't want to go without those things. And so it's basically the difference I feel is that what are you trying to do? What are you trying to accomplish? And this is for your good. And so I think, don't use it for the wrong people. Don't play the stock market with it. Don't try to find out necessarily what someone else should be doing. Unless that person, like you're working with a very young child that really can't work, you can't do that with, or some person that just but find out how you can be healthier and stronger. And so this is, and so you can use just about any. And one of the things I like to tell people about, we all have friends in multi-level businesses, and I'm not against that at all, because there's a lot of real good things out in multi-level. But how do you say no to them? It's real hard, because for a lot of them, it's their whole life. Every time you see them, they tell you about this new product, and pretty soon at least I tend to maybe avoid them. But here's a way you can test their product. And then, if it tests weak, you can just say to them, how do you argue with muscle testing? You can say, the stuff isn't for me. It looks like good stuff, and I'll bet it's helping a lot of people, but I test weak. It makes me weak. So it's a good way to kind of keep your friendship and avoid having to get. But see, for example, this. How do you know if this is good for you? Now, I like that label. It's a pretty label, and it sounds good. It's got all this good stuff for my intestinal tract. Costs $30. So, 30 years ago I just bought it. Sounds good. The guy says really good stuff. But now I can just test it. And for some reason it says no. So I just it took me, how long did that take me? 5 seconds? 5 seconds. So I made a lot of money in 5 seconds. If I did that every 5 seconds, I could retire. I mean, a couple $100 a minute. But that's what you can do. That's how quick it is. Now, I don't know why. See, that's what they're trying to tell us when we just read that quote. I don't understand why. I don't understand how. It looks like good stuff. You read the literature on it, and sounds really good. It sounds like something I might need. But this is the ultimate test. The other way to test is to buy it and try it. But even then, you still may not know. You've all taken things for a week or a month or longer, and you can't honestly say it's made a difference in the way you feel. For example, you take vitamin C every day. Are you healthier? Well, you hope so. And everything I read says vitamin C makes me healthier. 20, 30 years ago, I started doing chelation for myself. I wasn't having heart disease. I wasn't having bad circulation in my feet. I didn't have a stroke. But I read the material, and I saw what it did to other people, and so I started doing chelation. Now, people say, well, are you healthier? I say, I don't know. But I feel pretty good most of the time. So it was safe, and I did it in my office, so I didn't have to pay for it. So it was a good thing. But I didn't test it. But so a lot of things we do in a preventive sense. And we don't really know. So you can do this, really. You can muscle test if you want to go exercise. Now, you don't want to have it consume your whole life. How far should I run? How many times a week? But you can do it. Dr. Hawkins, in the back of his book, he tests books. And he's tested books. He gives you a scale. Which books are the best books? Now, that's for him. And I think things like books are very individual things, and one book that might be great for you may not be what I need to be reading right now. But that's, the other day, we need to have a couple trees cut down in our house. Now, how do you pick a tree service? Well, if you have a friend that had it done, maybe you'd get that person. How do you pick a mechanic if you don't? Well, I didn't know, so I said, let's try this. So we went into the phone book, and I put my finger on one tree service, and I dowsed, and I put it on another one, and I dowsed. And we found one that tested well. So we called him over. Turned out great. I mean, the guy did a super job. He cleaned up after himself. He cut the wood like I like him, and his prices were very reasonable. So that's great. But you can do it for just about anything. Because that tree service guy had an energy field that was compatible with mine and my needs. So there's very, very little you can't apply this to. Now, muscle testing, the advantage of dowsing is that you can do it by yourself. But it takes a little more confidence because you're on your own. Now, muscle testing, you get two opinions. The person being tested and the tester. And if you don't agree, let's say I pick this up and I test and I say, oh yeah, I test pretty strong. And the guy testing me, excuse me, so oh no, you're weaker. Well, then you just turn the statement around 180 degrees. So instead of saying this is good for me, you say this is bad for me. And then if it's bad for me, that would be a true statement, and so I'd say strong. So you have a sort of a feedback, a double check, that you don't have when you douse. Dowsing, you could douse and then come back in an hour, just see if you still get the same question. Now with muscle testing, chiropractic, any of you been to a chiropractor that's done muscle testing with you? Okay. They can use just about any muscle. You can use your leg, your arm. And the chiropractors develop a study or a science, you might say, that they have found that different large muscle groups relate to different organs in your body. And it's really fascinating. They may kind of like getting yourself a physical exam energetically, because they can test a muscle group, and if it's weak, you say, oh boy, your pancreas may have a little trouble. And I think on your handouts, I think you'll see. No, I guess those are affirmations. But then they can take. What's fascinating, really, let's say I had a large intestine weakness, and they test it, and they say, oh, this you'll go weak. So then you can pick something up to see if that will help your particular weakness. I think it's just fascinating. And so let's just try something for the heck of it. Who would like to volunteer? Just for everybody's shot. No one's sat in the front row. No, we're going to invade her privacy a little bit so we can find out where she might have a weakness. Now you'll see on that, you should have a sheet there that talks about different focus points. Now you don't have to you learn those points. All you can do, you can write what you want to test on a piece of paper. Because all you're trying to do is tell your brain what you want to know. So with muscle testing, first, it's best that you aren't mad at her. You aren't saying, I got to be out here in 10 seconds. Anyway, you got time, you can kind of relax. And then to kind of get your brain balanced, they say, you can either do this little, I don't know if it's yoga, or you can tap your thymus point is you take the notch in your sternum right up here and move your finger down. You come to a little ridge. It's maybe kind of subtle. That's your thymus point. So you can tap that a few times. You know, like the great apes, Tarzan or whatever. They're stimulating their thymus gland. Or you can say a thymus affirmation, which is, I'm full of love, I've got faith, trust, gratitude, and courage. That seems to get your brain balanced, so you'll test better. So just why don't you tap your thymus a few times. Okay. Now, any muscle will work, but this is convenient. Now, you got to keep in mind, this is not to see how strong she is or I am. All we're trying to do is compare her muscle strength under different stimuli. So we have her hold. Her job is to, excuse me, be as strong as she can every time we test. My job is to apply pressure until I feel the muscle kind of give away. It's best if she doesn't look at me, because if she looks into my eyes, there can be a transfer of energy. You always warn them before you test, and it's pretty simple. You just hold on. Okay, be strong. I'm going to push, and for 1 or 2 seconds, you push, and you both get an idea how you feel. Excuse me. Now, then before you test anything, you do this. Now, so we get an idea of what, say something. My name is Linda.
My name is Linda.
Okay, resist again. Come on, be strong. What's happened? She's speaking.
Wasn't telling the truth.
What's the difference? You know, be real
Yeah.
strong. Be real strong. My name is Linda.
My name is Linda.
My name is Meredith.
My name is what?
What is your name?
My name is Mary. My name is Mary.
Okay, resist. Is there a difference?
There certainly is, yeah.
Almost always you can watch their neck muscles. When she says the truth, isn't your name Mary Beth? Okay. When she says the truth, there's no strain. And when she fakes, you see these cords as they try. So now we both know how it feels. And so now, just for the heck of it, the large intestine point is a point between your belly button and your hip pointer. So find those 2 points. Where's your belly button?
That's here.
Okay. Top and front part of your hips. You get out of it. Okay, so somewhere right in that area is a large intestine point. So just put one finger there on the other on your right side.
What?
Halfway between the 2 points. Halfway between the 2 points. So here's your hip and here's your belly button. So it'll be right about there. Now this is just a way we can get an idea of when we focus on our large intestine, what happens. So let's try it. Just resist, be strong. Does she look stronger or weaker?
Weak.
You're kind of...
It felt a little weaker. It didn't feel as weak
Okay,
as
now-
as saying my name was Linda.
Yeah. So what the chiropractor would do, he'd say, this can help the large intestine. So she will hold this right here and just touch that point again. Okay? Resist again. Hold it strong. Is there a difference?
There is.
Isn't that amazing? I mean, to me, that's just fascinating. How else did you get that information? You can't. You could spend an hour researching this product, and you still wouldn't know the answer. And that is, does she need it? Now, another fascinating thing is, okay, touch that spot again. Okay, resist again. Hold it. Okay, now we. What's the large intestine affirmation? Come on, look. Don't you have it? Oh, you didn't get one. Okay, I'm basically clean and good. I'm worthy of being loved. Is that right? Yeah. Okay, say that. I'm basically clean and good,
and I'm worthy of being loved.
Okay, now touch that point. Okay, resist again. Hold it.
It's stronger. Kind of amazing.
What made the difference? The thought made the difference. Dr. Diamond came up with all these affirmations.
It saved me $60.
Yeah, but that's how it works.
Now, I'm sorry, I'm confused.
Okay.
So, why did she respond differently by saying this? And how does that tie to that and saving the $60?
It's really not 60, is it? Oh, it is. You said. So did I. Okay, there's several ways your body can several ways to help heal your body. One is with nutrients, and another is with energy. Now, an affirmation is a phrase, a thought process, and there's a whole lot of different affirmations. These are John Diamond's affirmations that he worked through by using muscle testing. By using the large intestine affirmation, she created an energy field that strengthened and helped her large intestine. Now, doing it this way, just like if you took this vitamin once a day, it would give you some help, but you probably need to take it every day. And same with the affirmation. Until you got at the cause of the problem and did these things long enough, You just have to keep doing them. Ideally, you'd say the affirmation on a regular basis, then pretty soon you wouldn't need to take it as say it as often.
So it's
Or
a substitute for that.
in some
Or,
degrees
yeah.
it is. A little different approach to get the same results. And see, we all should be saying our affirmations. We should get up in the morning and at least say the thymus affirmation. Because that does raise your energy level.
You have to touch the points, or can
You don't need to say it. You say that. You can tap your thymus or say your thymus affirmation. They both seem to help.
Okay.
But they're temporary, and they're sort of temporary because the world we live in is puts it down. And a lot of these areas in our bodies where we're weak for a reason. It isn't just lack of energy. It's digestion and dietary choices and our medical history or the use of antibiotics and steroids and environmental pollution. All these things create a weakness in us. And I'm convinced, and you've got to convince yourself, that if someone would do this sort of thing and get to the point where their large intestine stress, they stayed strong, they're much less likely to have things like colon cancer. But you got to be converted, though, before you're willing to put your time and effort into that sort of approach. Most of us wait till the problem shows up.
But it's like you're saying, what harm is there?
Pardon?
It's like you keep saying, what harm is there? What's the downside to doing it?
Well, that's right. That's exactly right. What's the downside is inconvenience. I think people, once you get another thing you can do with this, which is really kind of fun. you can make a list of your. Let's say your family history is heart. You got a heart. You can just write heart and test it. You can say my heart is healthy, and if you get a no answer, you better start start experimenting and finding things that might help your heart. And you can test every one of them. Should I be chelated? Should I take vitamin C? Should I take arginine? And you can be much more specific in how you try and prevent. Then you go back in a month or 2 or 3 or whatever and test it again. See if you're getting better. I mean, what more effective way of prevention could you do? You can kind of cover your body, just the major parts. My dad has colon cancer, okay? I'm going to check my colon. Now, I'm not saying don't get a colonoscopy, but let's say you can't afford a colonoscopy. Then do these things. Okay, so now the other way that you can test is, I love these classes because people frequently come out of the audience and say, well, what about doing it this way? Or what about doing? Why not? The other way is just take something, stand and kind of get balanced on your feet, and just kind of, and then just hold it on your chest with the idea in mind, this is good for me. And see which way your body tends to lean. Now, some people say you need to face north. That's if you want to do that, that's fine. But, sometimes you get confused and you aren't sure where north is, or a cloudy day or something, you don't know where the sun. Just hold it on your chest. Try that too. And then, if you're doing dowsing also, hold it on your chest and then douse it. Or have someone muscle test you. Get some feedback as to see how accurate your interpretation of what happened. And you can do, let's say you test good. So then what would be the next step? Oh, this is really good for me. I better buy it. What would you do?
How much?
Yeah, you'd say, now you don't really even have to take them out of the bottle. You say, I need 1 of these a day. I need 2 of these a day. I need 1 in the morning and 1 at night. Whatever you can think of, is you can test it. If you can think of it, you can test it. So it just, I can't emphasize enough what I think is the ability we have with this sort of information to develop this skill of taking better care of ourselves. There's just no substitute. And you don't bother going to medical school. You won't learn it there either. Okay, now, well, here's some affirmations down at the bottom of that second page. Now, these books, I think the top 2 are the one I put. The resources, Life, Energy, and Your Body Doesn't Lie. Those are great. And then Power versus Force. And these others are very interesting, but I think if you did those, Your Body Doesn't Lie and Power versus Force, you'll be Then these others are really quite interesting, but you really don't need to get into that if, there's nothing magic about the pendulums. There's nothing magic. You can use an earring, you can use a necklace, you can use a string with a washer on it. It's up here that makes a difference. Now, as I learn more and more about the problem we're all experiencing with radiation exposure, I'm kind of leaning towards encouraging people to get quartz crystal pendulums, because quartz crystals can neutralize the radiation. That Dr. Emoto was working in conjunction with this lady that was doing the quartz, and they exposed water to radiation and took pictures of the crystals, and then they put the quartz crystal in the water after it had been irradiated, and the water went back to its healthy configuration. So I think, I really believe it, because I've got a quartz crystal. I carry them in my quartz crystal. I don't know, I paid $5, $7, something. And I haven't tested. I need another volunteer. Mary, do you want to volunteer again?
Sure.
Let's just test the crystal. Let's see what it does.
As long as you don't radiate me first.
It doesn't have an exhaust, so I don't know what I'm going to put on the email a site you can go to. Listen to this person lecture about her experiences with crystals. Okay, let's just test you. I don't know, just touch your thigh this morning. No, just hold it. Just touch your thigh. Okay, be strong. Resist. A little bit weak.
A little weak.
Okay, just hold this and touch yourself. Okay, resist again. Hold it.
Stronger.
Yeah, really. Can't have it.
I can't have that, huh?
So anyway, do you have any questions about any of this?
I do, on that quartz, now, you're saying that's a better thing to use, or?
No, I'm just saying, for the specific problem we're all faced with of radiation from Fukushima, this seems to be, I think iodine's another good solution.
Oh.
Watch the video, but that iodine just takes care of one isotope, radioactive I-131. And the function of iodine is to saturate your tissues with iodine so your body isn't looking for iodine, and it'll take radioactive iodine, and that puts you at risk for cancer. But we've got all of these other isotopes in the stuff that's leaking. My daughter was recently down in Southern California, and she went to the beach. She said, there's all these dead sea lions. They're all over the beach. What's causing it? Nobody knows. See, they're not going to tell you, because there's nothing they can tell you to do about it. What are you going to do? Everybody gets scared, you know. What are they going to do? What do we do then? Everybody wants the government to do something. Here's that good joke. What's the difference between, one difference between death and taxes is that every time Congress meets, death doesn't get worse. Anyway.
So you're not saying that the quartz makes the pendulum work better, it's just
No.
having quartz on you helps you.
Makes you better.
Right, so it has
Protects
nothing
you.
to do with it being your pendulum, it's just
No.
because you have your pendulum with you.
What I'm saying is, if you don't have a pendulum, I think this would be a great one to have. Carry it with you all the time, so no matter where you are, you can get it out and use it. You'll make new friends. Some people are gonna probably shun you, but that's okay. Anyway, there's all this good information, but you got to do it. You got to start dowsing. Make yourself a crystal. Make yourself a pendulum, and get busy. Any other questions?